Hi everyone, and I didn't want to leave you too long on that last dour video about the truth. I'd actually put together a follow-up video this past weekend, and it was all about showing off pictures that I had lying around of me back in the 1980s, the turn of the 1990s as a kid, and the idea was to show off some fashion and introduce you to a little bit more about my past. And then I found that I just could not do it. And I apologize for this, but I am too private a person to go into a lot of detail about my past. And so I put the video together. I was ready to post it, and then I sat on it for a bit, and I just could not bring myself to put it out there. So, with apologies, I found out something about myself, which is I cannot I can't do it. I cannot publicly bring you this kind of here I am disclosure about my past self. But what I did want to have as takeaways from that are pretty simple. One was that I think I would have turned out the way I am today, kind of regardless of how the background would have gone. That is, I I grew up in a stable middle class household. That's very fortunate, and I'm very grateful for that. But I went to all public schools. I went to a public university. It was inexpensive. I didn't fully put myself through school, but I funded as much as I could every year. And then I didn't have a leg up. I spent a long time trying to find my first job. But then from there, my first job led to another and then another. And somehow I managed to climb up into, the Dulles that you see today, who is a very fortunate Dulles indeed. But had I not sort of climbed the corporate ladder, if that's what you want to call it, I think I still would have turned out very similar to how I am today. It just was baked in that I would have read certain amounts of books. I would have had this fascination with words. I would have used language this particular way because I was doing it as a teenager in high school. And I wished I had that video from way back when my dad recorded me with a Betamax, and I was appalled looking at myself because I was this, and I didn't imagine that I was this. I thought I was something, I don't know, very different. But I've come to accept whatever this is. The other piece I wanted to show off was that I had a poor sense of fashion and wore some utterly ridiculous clothes. Part of it was that I didn't know better. Part of it was that I had zero budget. So it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a lady's shirt because the zipper or the button is reversed. Well, no one's going to notice. And it looks pretty interesting, so why not just wear it anyway? And I had things like an MC Escher flannel shirt that had all of these geese flying into each other. I had a different flannel shirt that had cavemen chasing triceratops. I had something that looked kind of like a black lab coat, though I think it was supposed to be more of like some sort of a dress layer thing for ladies, but I wore it like a lab coat, and so on and so forth. Just pretty crazy stuff, including painting some of my own clothes because, well, that's what we did before the days of the internet, and there was lots of time to do that kind of thing. So none of it was cool. At least I think in retrospect, none of it was cool. It was just, I didn't think anything of it. And it was college, and nobody was going to call me on. I had no repercussions from dressing poorly or dressing in poor taste. So that's what I did. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about today is much stranger, and it's to give you a quick overview of life in the monastery. And by that, I mean a sort of analogy or metaphor, because I've described INFPs as having some qualities characteristic of being monks. And by that, I mean there's this ascetic approach to life. That there are only the needs of simple things. There's a sort of internal self-containment. There's a reverence and gratitude, typically, and this combination of wanting to think more deeply on the one hand, but being kind of very, I don't want to say practical minded, but it's sort of, I bake bread and contemplate the existence of God is the way that I tried to phrase it in the past. But mostly I just bake bread. I'm not that abstract philosophically a person, but I do spend a fair amount of time, much as I can, in this sort of headspace that's one of isolation, contemplation, and an equilibrium, a balance of feeling, a balance of well-being. So it's this sort of effort to stay in a place of pleasant neutrality, and inviting you into this headspace of the monastery. By that, I'm trying to say it's this cultivated nature of aloneness, at least in one's own headspace, of self-containment, and of being contemplative, and drawing from the past and past kind of feeling events to bring them into the present, to feed into this general sense of balance in a stable form of well-being. Seeking this reverence, tranquility, gratitude, these qualities, and looking to inhabit these qualities for as much time as possible, because they're a good place in which to live. And before I get into the details, I do want to say this is not for everybody. That is, this life path of seeking an internal contemplative and place of feeling well-being, that's sort of a pleasant neutrality. That isn't a place of any special enlightenment that's any better or worse, but not better than any other way that other types manifest through their cognitive preferences, their own kind of goals in life, their own areas to attain. We're all heading to the same end. That is the same ultimate end. There's no route that leads to universal salvation, but I find that moving through the world in this mindset, in this way, is the most natural, the most favorable, the easiest path for me. And it may not be for you. You need to choose your own path and follow that and attain your own outcomes, look for your own goals and your own outcomes, because someone trying to pursue this path when it's not meant for them is not going to have a lot of fun. And not only is it not fun, but probably end up in the same, we all end up in the same place. And it's to do so while trying to be something that you are not is just going to make things more unfun for you. Anyway, life inside the monastery, what Bufo Peregrinus has brought up in the past is the idea of pulling forward your past selves into your present self. It's sort of a lack of distinction between present and past selves that I am fortunate to be able to draw upon feeling memories of things that have happened in the past that are, again, this pleasant neutrality, a place to spend time in that particular feeling. And there's, for instance, under Austrian pines, a fire road that leads up from a set of alfalfa fields in a tranquil area where the butterflies are all doing things that butterflies do. And we have other plants like wild poppies kind of in the mix. And on the fire road, there were numerous beehives that were keeping busy, doing what beehives do. And beyond that, more forest and silence and tranquility, except for bird song. I can re-experience the place, but the place is, I have little certainty on how accurate the memory itself is, but the feeling of that place is still available and I can draw upon it. There's a field or series of hills and fields outside of the London metro area, one of the beautiful parks in the greater London metro area. And I was there with someone for a time, and I can go back to that place as well as other places that were walks along the Thames where there were the first signs of crocuses blooming. It doesn't have to be something out of Europe, though. It can be things just as local, like I've talked about seeing the minor bees first coming out in spring. And there are a cornucopia of these sorts of feeling memories. And now I can't attest to the accuracy of the memories themselves, but I can say that the feelings that are drawn upon, that are brought back, re-experienced, what we look to attain there are they're all goals to treasure, and they're important for bringing me into a headspace where I can be alone and, again, contemplate some of the things that I'm looking to think through more. And I apologize, my light just went off, but oh well. So this, of course, calls for a lot of alone time. Just being able to go into those spaces at any sort of gaps between work, between hobbies, between doing social things. And because of that, because that space is as real as any of these other places, there's always sort of a slight detachment about where I am in the present and what's presently going on, unless there's a specific thing like living through the eyes of another, experiencing their experiences. Today I was at physical therapy, and the physical therapist and I got to talking, and he had some fascinating background to his story about how he came into the business and what he had done beforehand, and hobbies. And before I knew it, with him being kind enough to let me ask questions, I was vicariously living or reliving his own experiences and frustrations and joys and triumphs in life, and being able to sort of piggyback onto the feeling emotions as he was able to relate them. It brought up all of these evaluations based on feelings that were very valuable to me. And that is, in social engagement, what is really interesting. And that's one of the things that does bring me great joys, being able to not just socialize to be social, but to be able to sort of dig in and find out about people and then learn more and then get to the point where I can experience their experiences to bring kind of to relate to life inside the monastery. And yes, what I'm looking for is for them to relate their stories of what's happening outside the walls so that I can understand in this abstracted way what happens out in the wider world and its meanings and interpretations and evaluations for myself. to enrich my own understanding. And then I go back to baking bread and contemplating the existence of God. So anyway, yes, this is weird. I apologize that it's weird, but I'm trying to bring about a way to understand. And I don't think this is necessarily unique to INFPs, other than maybe the analogy that people, I think anyone can bring up feeling emotions, but to inhabit this as a natural preferred space is maybe a little bit odd. But I'm happy to do it, and it is a way that I have spent my life so far, and that I expect I will continue to live out through the rest of my days, and I hope to do so in this mostly pleasant equilibrium, this awareness of a happy, relatively neutral to happy, tranquil place where this sort of contemplation can take place. That's all I've got. Again, I hope this is a better video than the last one, less dour at least, and I hope I made some sense to you all. Leave a comment if it makes sense. Leave a comment if it doesn't make sense. But always happy to hear from people, and as always, thank you for watching and for listening.